Muslims claim the Quran contains scientific miracles. In reality, it is full of scientific errors. Semen comes from the backbone. Quran 86, 6-7. Man is created from a fluid that is emitted from between the backbone and the ribs. This is completely wrong. Semen is produced in the testes, not the backbone. The sun sets in a muddy spring.
Alright, so we are focusing on this verse, and this is a clip from a video where I was suggested to watch this video, and it basically compiled the so-called points against Islam. And I'm focusing on this question because this is not the first time, and I would think it would not be the last time that someone pointed out to this verse and citing it as if it is a case of contradiction with known science. And I think normally when people look at this verse, a fluid that is emitted is normally assumed to be semen, right? Hence, that's why they concluded that this is wrong. But is it? Because the word in Arabic is not referring to semen. So what is it? So for this, dedicating this video is purely for this addressing this verse. And to that, I'll take a clip here where Jacob, ex-Muslim there, is citing several reasons why he left Islam, including what he said to be contradiction in the Quran, and he cited that particular verse. And we will cover this, this video, this clip, and see what is said with regard to that verse.
For instance, give one quick example. What do you have in mind? And anyways, we don't need to respond to it, but we want to see an example of what you would say. You said very basic things.
يخرج من بين الصلب والترائب.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right. So here he presents Surah Tariq, where Allah Azza wa Jal says, فلينظر الإنسان مما خلق من ماء دافق يخرج من بين الصلب والترائب. Now my question to you is, now you're Egyptian, I'm assuming, but let me ask you this question as someone who speaks Arabic. Sadly, most of the Arabs they don't properly.
So that is an interesting point, because the verse is in Arabic, and this is not a cop-out, etc., right? Because when we are criticizing a verse, and there's an issue with the translation, so we shouldn't, meaning whatever happened in the translation shouldn't be the case against the original text. And it's good that this person here at least is familiar with Arabic. I think he's Egyptian.
Properly speak Arabic. But let me ask you, do you know what Dhamir is?
ضمير.
Yes.
A consciousness?
No. All right, that's
oh, ضمير. Oh, you mean ضمير as in
yes, from
language, like ضمير غائب or ضمير.
Yes.
Yeah.
So why is it ضمير, for instance?
Similar to a pronoun, like what does it
يخرج. Then after it, you would have something there missing. What is it?
بضمير يخرج هو أو يخرج هي.
Exactly, excellent. So that which comes out there, now we need to identify what is that. But first, before I do any of that right now, before I will respond to the scientific thing, and then we'll move to whether Islam is true or not. And that's why I was telling you, I don't need to deal with these scientific things that you have, because they're mostly misrepresentation that you have. Misunderstanding is of science or of what the Quran says. Now, my question to you is this. Where is the scientific error? Let's start with that. You make your argument, and then I'll show you why your argument is problematic. Go ahead.
First of all, I'm not going by my interpretations. I've read the interpretations of Ibn Kathir and Qurtubi, and
what is the argument?
The argument is, the Quran is saying that, or what I assume the Quran is saying is semen comes or is formed or it starts forming, or that semen is generally related to the backbone or to the chest, or whichever word صلب والترائب refers to. I know there's a lot of arguments on whether it's for the lady that tara'ib is between the chest or whatever. This area in general, the abdomen part, which we know it's not. Or which
it doesn't say abdomen part there. It says min bayni. What does min bayni mean?
I thought one of the tafasir was the tara'ib.
No, what does min bayni? Min bayni. What does it?
Bain is in between, right?
Yeah.
Between?
Yes. So it's saying in between something. It's not saying in the tara'ib or in. You said in the abdominal area.
I meant like.
Yes. All right. So you're first. You said semen, and then you said abdominal area. Okay. So this argument itself is incorrect, anyways. So now let's highlight why it's incorrect. First, what does the word?
Before we do, I'm sorry. Before we do,
yes.
Can we agree that the tafasir are saying this?
No. The tafasir are not saying what you're saying, and whether the tafasir say what you're saying or not, we need to look at the text. What is the text saying? Okay. And the tafasir, as I said, are not saying the way you present. Now, first, let's start with, you said semen or sperm, you're referring to that. Where does the Quran, what's the word that the Quran uses for semen and sperm? There is a specific word.
In Arabic, it is mani, right?
Do you know what that word is?
Semen, mani,
For sperm, for the sperm.
mani or mani, yeah.
When it refers to the sperm or the semen, that fluid the human being is created from, specifically the semen or the sperm, Allah uses the word nutfa.
Nutfa also, yeah.
Nutfa specifically. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, and He says in many places about the nutfa, that this is where the human being is created from, right? So does Allah use the word nutfa in Surah Al-Tariq?
I don't think so.
Okay, why is the word used now? So first, you made an argument based on semen and sperm. But the verse in the Quran is not saying nutfa. So why is it saying?
ماء مهين.
No. ماء دافق.
يخرج
ماء
من
دافق.
ماء دافق يخرج. Yeah, ماء دافق. I'm sorry, ماء دافق.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what does ماء دافق mean?
I assumed it referred to the sperm, to the semen
No.
also. What does semen?
I'm not interested in assumptions, with all due respect. I'm just saying, what does it mean if we were to literally translate it?
Flowing water, I guess.
Gushing fluid.
Gushing. Okay.
So dafiq is something which is gushing, gushes out. And water or ma there is going to be fluid. So we have a gushing fluid, right? So Allah Azza wa Jalla says here, there's a gushing fluid. So that gushing fluid now comes out, yakhruju. That gushing fluid comes out, so the initiating process of that thing comes out from where? Between a sulb and a tarai. What is the meaning between sulb of the word sulb and tarai?
What I know is that it's not, people, mufassirin, mukhtalifin.
What is the general view of the sulb? What the meaning of the sulb? Backbone and tara'ib?
The area between the chest, I think.
The ribs. Specific. Adla, the ribs. So, okay, we have now backbone and we have ribs. Now, do you know that scientifically, between the backbone and the ribs, there's something called the seminal vesicles? Do you know what the seminal vesicles are?
Yeah.
Why is the seminal vesicle?
It's part of the accessory glands that create the semen.
All right, so this seminal vesicle is located, by definition, between the ribs and the backbone. And the seminal vesicles is where you have the initial fluid that carries the semen and that carries the sperm that the human being then uses to, multiply and have intercourse and all of that. Now, my question to you is this: is not that this is a scientific mistake. My question to you is, when the Quran now defines that there is now a fluid, the gushing fluid, as we know today, comes from these seminal vesicles that are located scientifically between the backbones and the ribs. Now, my question is, how would Prophet Muhammad, now what you're trying to use as a doubt is in reality and
evidence. They're going to spin it on me. How did he know?
Exactly. How would he possibly know that piece of information? Why wouldn't he use the word nutfa? Why would he use any other different location other than this specific location?
Mm-hmm.
Now, so that shows... Go ahead.
I was going to ask, the seminal vesicles, I did not think that they were between the ribs and the backbone.
They are. In fact, you can just Google right now and put a picture and type seminal vesicles.
I thought they were at the prostate.
And have a look. Where exactly is it's located? You type it yourself, because I don't want to show these body parts. Pictures of
like it is
because they're all explicit
behind.
Pictures.
It is.
Is it between the backbone? No. Is it between the backbone and the ribs or not? By definition, you can look. You'll see in the picture. You have the picture of the backbone, and you have a picture of the human being. Is it in between the two?
Picture of. Okay, this is the one, I think.
Come on, is it in between the two or not?
It's. I mean, it's set up.
The backbone ends here. You have the seminal vesicles here, and then you have the ribs here, and you have in between the backbone and the ribs. The backbone and the ribs, you have something called seminal vesicles, in which that gushing fluid gushes out.
Like if these are the ribs, the seminal vesicles are below it at the pelvis.
Is it in between or not?
Like almost.
Let me ask you. Let me show you how ridiculous what you were just saying is. First, the ribs ends here, and then you have the seminal vesicle, and then you have the ribs, and it's exactly in between the two. Now you're trying to make a very ridiculous argument by stating, oh, the ribs is a little bit on the top. That's irrelevant. Is it in between the two? Let me ask you a simple question. Is your head between your shoulders? Can I say that you have a head between your shoulders? Your head is between your shoulders?
Linguistically, yeah.
Okay. So when you come with a very ridiculous things trying to say, oh, it's a little bit up, it's a little bit down, that's irrelevant. In reality, when Allah uses the term that the seminal vesicles are in between the backbones and the ribs, and it is here, then by definition, it is in between the backbones and the ribs. Do you agree on that?
If I do agree with this, then almost almost everything in your body you could say is between the ribs and the backbone, though.
Not everything in your body you can say is between. There are things which are lower, and there are things.
There are things that are outside.
Your eyes and nose and ears are not between your backbones and the ribs.
You could say that they are. If,
you can't. You can't, because the backbones and the ribs are essentially you can say the barrier of that which is in between here, this area. So when we say something is here specifically between the backbone and the ribs, by definition it is between the backbone. So first, let's not. This is the thing. There's a level of being ridiculous you can get to when you don't want to accept something which is absolutely clear. By definition of every language, it is in between the backbone and the ribs. But not only that. We can also use a different argument. We can say that يخرج here is not referring to the gushing fluid at all. And this is where I was asking you about the damir. So look, whichever way you want to go about this, you're not going to be able to find an argument against Islam. Now, how can we say that this is not even referring to the fluid? Because يخرج, as I said to you, is referring to a specific damir. And that damir in the Arabic language and in the Quran, it can refer to the closest, the most recent mentioned damir, or that which was mentioned before. Now, what was mentioned before? Allah, if you go back to the context, Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, فَلْيَنظُرِ الْإِنسَانُ مِمَّا خُلِقَ. Did the human being observe from what he was created? Then Allah says, خُلِقَ مِن مَاءٍ دَافِقٍ. So Allah mentions the damir first, is the human being, and then mentions another damir, which is the gushing fluid. So there are two nouns here that are mentioned. And comes out here can refer to the human being and can refer to the gushing fluid. And the human being does come out of this area, between the backbone and the ribs. This is where the human being comes out from, literally. And this is not my interpretation, by the way. You can go to the English translations of the Quran. For instance, Abdul Halim translation. He would translate يخرج here referring to the human being. He says he comes out and then he would put human being. Because in Arabic language, comes out there, the damir can either refer to the closest damir, the closest now mentioned, or the one that was mentioned before. So either way you wanna spend this or go about. Even if you wanna try and say, oh, this is not in between the backbone and the ribs, which is clearly as the seminal vesicles are, you got no argument against Islam.
Is it my turn now?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
So what you're doing right now is part of my problem with Islam, where any question that I can ask scientifically does have an answer. In other this, I'm not the first person who discovered this. This has been asked to a lot of Muslims, and there's always an answer. What I'm really not trying to be hypocritical or anything, but I really think you're stretching it. That's what I think, and. I'm sorry, by the way.
Now, I can understand that perception because you already have original perspective, right? Meaning that you have a conclusion, and suddenly when an answer is provided that is addressing your conclusion, you feel, so.
Way for pausing that. This is my first ever interview with anyone of the sort. I'm sorry for disrupting.
I'm waiting for the argument.
Yeah. I'm saying that there'll always be an answer. You can always, stretch the meaning of words.
So let me get this straight. This is your argument. Your argument against me giving you an answer is that you're always going to give me an answer, brother. So because you're always going to give me an answer, and Muslims are always going to find an answer. Okay, when you claim I stretched something, now go ahead, tell me which part in what I said was a stretch. Go ahead. Which part did I say it was not? Which part in what I said was not accurate?
The part between it being from the ribs to the backbone. I'm not saying it's inaccurate. I'm saying that technically you could say that the seminal vesicles is in that area, but that's what I mean by stretching the definition. It's not at the same level of the ribs. Is it
linguistically correct to say the seminal vesicles are between the backbone and the ribs? Is this a false statement or a correct statement?
I'm saying I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying it's a stretch.
I'm not saying you're saying I'm lying. I asked a very specific question.
No. Would I say that? I guess linguistically, you could say that it is between the lips and the backbone.
No. I guess we're talking about actual facts.
I'm not a linguistic, scientist. I could be.
I give you an example for that reason. Now, I hold your head with you. I give you an example for a reason, because this is how language is. So you just admitted yourself that linguistically, there's nothing wrong with that statement. And if that statement is correct linguistically, it's also correct scientifically. We know that the seminal vesicles is where the gushing fluid comes out, which carries the semen or the sperm, which then the human being is created. So you just admitted yourself that there's no stretch here. Number two, didn't I give you an alternative explanation and an argument as well to understand the verse, that even if you didn't want to use the idea of the seminal vesicles, it's also valid Islamically from an Arabic language and from a rational perspective? Did I do that or not?
Yeah, you did. No, I'm not saying that this is. You know, I could be wrong about the sperm thing. Like the entire verse could be correct. I'm not saying that this is like, oh, this has been disproven, and my claims and you know, completely shattered. This could be true. What you're saying.
No. I'm not asking what could be, would be. I'm asking about realities. In reality, do the two arguments that I've presented refute that there is a problem scientifically in this verse here in any way, shape, or form?
It is at the very least not specific. Like I think it could have been more specific than that. At the very least.
Okay. Thank you for.
Now, the issue with this is that the argument to argue as if the verse itself contradicts science and what is known scientifically, that is even more of a stretch, right? Because there's no word semen there, there's no word sperm there. It's just ma in dafiq, right? So ma is fluid or water. Dafiq is what was the word just now? Yeah. So of course you can meaning how to say it is interesting. I don't know, is it psychologically, etc., that they would argue that okay, yeah, semen is not mentioned there, but that is the fluid that comes out as such, right? So he would not see that as a stretching to say that this verse is a problematic verse, but the explanation given somehow perceived as stretching, right? So these are the things that sometimes I think in the moment we as human beings do not realize, because we are fixated at a certain conclusion. We have perhaps have some time locking into that conclusion, and suddenly when a new information that shatter our perception, even though it's more clear, it's more direct, it is more accurate, etc., it still is very difficult to accept. This is how I think about it. This is about not about the verse, but about how he find it very difficult to accept it, right? So, and from his perception, the original interpretation that he have, which is false, because you have to prove if that is actually the interpretation, right? Because he never see any counter argument about that, so he assumed that's the solid case. Hence, even a stronger, more valid point is brought forth that counter what he sees. He didn't realize that this is not is more of a stretching, etc., but he find it difficult to digest on that one, right? So this is a recurring theme, I think, in many of the discussion where I'm not sure how to end this, but this is just to share this portion, because there's another video that I forgot where it is that also address this one, and that's the second point, which is what is yakhruju is going back to the beginning of the whole story, which is us human, right? Allah says, don't you see how we are being created? Basically, we are being born, and we are there, right? We are there, coming out from between the backbone and the ribs. Anyway, so that's it for this one. Thank you for watching. See you next time.